All right, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to be breaking down how to make good entries on your swing positions. Now, of course, this is my trading strategy, so very likely differ than most people or from you even. But even if you day trade or swing trade or scalp or just use a totally different strategy than I do, that's totally fine. You'll still likely get something out of this video. And regardless, it's just nice to see other people's trading strategies. I know I enjoy watching other people trade and how they do it and what they look for. So I'm going to break down exactly that in this video, what I look for, how I draw my loading zones, how I enter it, my conviction, and pretty much everything as condensedly as I can. So first play we're looking at here is BALY. Reason I'm showing you guys this is because I actually just took profits on this play yesterday. Wish I held for a bit longer. I mean, I guess I wish I held in today just because it's up nearly 3% today and would have made a little bit more money. But, you know, market was kind of getting choppy, so I just want to protect my profits. Always protect your profits. Okay, jumping into it, though, first thing I'm looking for is I'm looking for a trend line, right? So what I do is I play bounce plays, right? So I'm basically looking for a bounce off a trend line, a support level, and of course conviction alongside my indicators and whatnot, and convergence. But first thing we're going to do here is we're going to draw a trend line. So this play has a very clear trend line. It's very clear. It's a descending trend line, and we're going to cut out a little bit of the action right there, as you can see, but that's okay because we're just going to want to get the main gist of it. So we're going to plop that first one, and as you can see, there's a little bit more price action going on up here, so it has reversed a little bit higher before. So I'm going to redraw this as a channel so that we can capture the full move. So in case it does decide to, I guess, bounce and reverse a little bit sooner, we'll be able to capture that. Just want to make sure your channels aren't crazy, right? You don't want to have a 5% deep channel, or else you're going to be risking quite a bit. But I think that's fair. You know, this is a very clear area of reversal here. Reversed here, here, and then most recently it's been coming down to the bottom. Next, we want to see if there's a resistance. There very clearly is a resistance trend line here, and I already know where that one is. So there's going to be one right about here. That's a good one. Of course, it broke it, but you know, that's fine. I'm just doing this to protect my profits. You could draw a little higher if you wanted, of course. I'm pretending like this whole move right here didn't happen, but I'm just showing you just for the heck of it. So that's that. We have our trend lines, and now we want to see if there's any support or resistances we can find. Typically on these descending trend lines, there aren't going to be, but we're going to take a look at the 1 year, 1 day. Now I typically look at the 4 year, 180 day for all my plays, even when I'm live, like, you know, trading it. That's what I'm always looking at, but it doesn't hurt to go out to the 1 year to see if you can find any significant support levels. And it looks like right here, there is a significant support level. You see, we obviously have this bounce here and this here. Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea to perhaps draw a little bit lower in case it did come lower, but I'm just going to draw a little bit up just because I can keep in mind of a stop loss. Let's hop back over to the 4 hour. All right, perfect. So now we have a support level and the trend line level, which is a perfect convergence right there, right? We have our trend line coming straight down into our support level. So that entry looks very, very nice. I will draw a resistance level. There probably isn't going to be much of one, but never hurts to have one just so that, you know, in case something happens, you can exit earlier. I'm going to put mine here. The reason is we have two wicks right here bouncing, a little bit of action over here, and then we have a lot of bouncing right here. And as of lately, this has actually been kind of a resistance level, or more of a struggle level, I'd say. But yeah, that's how I would draw BALY. I mean, that is how I drew it. And of course, as you can see, what I did was I entered here at the bottom, wrote it back up. I made about 15%. Like I said, I did miss part of the move. That's totally fine though. Can't complain about 15%. Now to go in deeper, of course, I don't trade solely off price action. I think price action is the most important, hence why I draw all these things, right? But I'm also looking at the indicators live. I'm not going to enter a play that is overbought, of course. I want to make sure everything looks good. So the 3 indicators I use are RSI, MACD, and Vortex Indicator. I know a lot of people use moving averages. I do have an EMA, as you can see up here. I have the moving average thing, so I can click it. However, when entering these type of trades, I don't use it just because it typically, you miss a lot of the move, right? So if I were to enter on the EMA, let's see. Okay, well, if I were to enter on the EMA, then I perhaps would enter right here and I would miss about 4%. So I do not use moving averages for this strategy, but I do use the RSI, the MACD, and the Vortex Indicator. So let's pretend that this recent move didn't happen. So let's get rid of that. So we're just looking at the most recent price action or before that happened. So we can kind of really analyze our play, right? So what I'm looking for is I'm looking to see price action history first. So it looks like the last time it bounced, it was oversold, right? The last few times it's bounced, it was oversold or at least near oversold. So I would say a smart entry would be to get under an RSI of 34. So I want to make sure my current price action is below 34 RSI before I even gauge my entry. And then I also want to look at the MACD. Of course, I want the blue line to be curling up over the signal line. Sometimes I will enter before it fully crosses over, and a curl up is all I need if I have enough conviction. That's totally fine. And then Vortex Indicator. I just recently added this into my mix probably about 2 months ago, but essentially I'm just looking to see where the green line or the bulls are at the bottom and the red, the bears, are at the top. And then eventually, of course, similar to the MACD, they will cross over, but I want to enter when this is at the bottom and this is at the top. So if we zoom in to see where I entered at, you can see right here the RSI was just under the RSI was just under oversold. The MACD was just starting to curl right there, and the green was at the bottom, red is at the top. So I saw that to be a perfect entry, and of course I did enter, and I profited about 15%. I think I actually entered right about here, so then I exited, I think it was right here. So I made about 13-14% on that play. Very, very strong. All right, so for the next play, we have SGH, Smart Global Holdings. First things first, I look to see if there are any trend lines. I don't see any trend lines, but I do see a descending trend line up here, right? So let's get our wick. Now, this isn't the most perfect. Like I said, I look for 3 bounces. We get 1, barely 2, 3. But for the sake of it, I think it's good to have it there just in case it does come up to that trend line. I can be a little bit weary, and if the price actually gets rocky, I'll sell out. But regardless, no other trend lines other than that. So let's move down the line. Next, we want to go to our price level and look for our support. You can see right here, there are definitely some wicks that are hitting the bottom and reversing. However, I think up here is a much more stronger support. It wouldn't hurt to have this one though. So I perhaps will draw this as a channel. So let's draw the bottom one first. So I'll place this one. Now there's only 2 bounces, but this would be like a lowest case scenario, right? So I'm going to edit this, make it a little bit more dashed just so I know it's not the actual support, but it's like a catch-all support. And then I'm going to draw my literal support line right about here. That way I'm catching these candle wicks, this candle wick, and then this recent price action bouncing here. So I know that somewhere either at this support level or this bottom support level, this will be a very solid loading zone to take my entry at. Now for my resistance to where I want to actually swing this play to, I'm going to want to find where the candles are bouncing off of, or at least where I think it's most, where it makes most sense to take my profits. Looks like right here is very strong. However, I like to be more conservative and less risky with my resistance levels. I'm going to come down here. Right there, we get some good action here. Get a lot of bouncing off over here, a lot of consolidating. I think it's very strong. I think this is perfect. So a move like this, we're looking for about 14, 13, 12%. That's actually a lot. Usually I strive for 3 to 4 to 1s. So that's definitely very strong. Now, how would I actually play this? Aside from the charting, I now want to draw my loading zone, right? So for my loading zone, I typically like to draw my loading zone based off of other supports. So I would say I'd load in probably anywhere from this price level to this bottom. That's a little bit steep though. That is 4%. I don't like to risk that much. So I'm actually going to up it, or I guess lower it. So I would say let's draw a rectangle to make it simpler, right? So let's go here so we can capture all this. Oops. So let's say I'll draw my loading zone perhaps right here. I think this is a good area. Kind of a little bit above the support line, but I do trust the support line quite heavily as it has reversed here multiple times. So I'm going to draw that. I'm going to make it yellow just because that's what I typically do. And now I'm going to draw a stop loss, right? So yellow is my loading zone. And then red is my stop loss. Of course, it has come down to this bottom trend line before, but if it breaks, I do not want it to break, right? So if this breaks, it's basically saying, hey, I'm breaking the trend and I'm going to go lower. We don't want that. So there, I would say right here is a very solid loading zone. You know, we're loading in anywhere between 2%, risking this. So at the most, you'd be risking perhaps 3% for a return of about 15% possibly, right? It's very strong. Now, as far as profit taking goes, I would just take profits near resistance. So let's just draw a rectangle for that. You know, I like to make it a little bit bigger. Sometimes I'll take profits sooner if things get rocky. Let's draw that, make it green, and we'll say, yeah, we'll take profits somewhere over here, right? Perfect. Now let's see how that performed. Pretty well, right? So we entered in our loading zone over here. I think I actually got in right about here. So I was risking 2%, 2.5%, and I wrote it up to this resistance trend line where I sold out for 14%. Of course, it actually broke through, went up, could have made another 7, 6%, but it got a little bit rocky, so I sold out. And of course, my indicators all lined up. It was oversold. The MACD was curling, and I have the green lower and the red higher. All right, so now that I've broken down how to actually chart these plays and how to make these entries and how to take your exits, I'm also now going to show you, or I guess explain to you kind of like my mental process through actually entering these plays. Not so much the technical side of things, but just your mindset's huge when trading, right? You could lose money very easily if you don't stay on top of your things, if you're not consistent. So having a good like mental strategy is very, very, very much needed when trading. So I have a scratch pad right here. I actually put at the bottom of my Thinkorswim. It really helps me, as stupid as it sounds. But just to quickly break it down for you. So the first thing I'm looking for is a good risk reward ratio, right? So I have a 3-to-1 minimum in place. Essentially what that means is I'm looking to make 3% and risk 1%, or make 6% and risk 2%. That way I'm always making more than I'm losing, right? Because I don't want to trade something that I expect to make 5% out of, but risk 4 or 5%. That just doesn't make sense to me. So definitely have some type of risk reward ratio in mind whenever you're entering or charting out your next play. Next, pretty obvious, but signs of reversal must be present. This just kind of helps me remind myself like, hey, is this really at a good spot for an entry? Really gauge your entry. What do your indicators look like? Is it oversold? Is the MACD curling? How does the price action typically behave down here? Stuff like that. And then similar to what I just said, use price action history and indicator history. What that means is you don't want to just solely go off of, is it oversold, or is it this, or is it this? Actually take a look at previous times it's bounced. So the last 3 times it's bounced, where was the RSI at? The last 3 times it's bounced, was it exactly on this trend line, maybe a little bit lower? How is it? Is it typically choppy at this area, or the price action history, is it telling me that it usually takes a few days to reverse here? Like, what's the estimated swing time here, right? So you want to know that stuff before getting into play so you can kind of gauge your entry. Then lastly, very, very important, execute your stop loss. I've done this many times where I actually have done the opposite. I'm sure we've all done that, where you say, all right, I'm going to risk here 3%. If this thing goes down 3%, I'm exiting. But then we end up holding past it, right? Next thing you know, your 3% turns into 10% and you're down 10% on your account. It's horrible. So always make sure you execute your stop loss. All right, that's huge. Never hold past your stop loss, or else it's going to kill you and kill your account.